All right. Hello there, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to a very special stream. Uh, Happy Steam Sale Day. For those of you unaware, I don't know, maybe you live under a rock and you only watch me because you're insane. Um, anyway, Steam Sale. Today's the first day of the Steam Summer Sale. Lots of good deals on there. You can go on there, you can check them out. They have a thing called like deep discounts, which is a bunch of stuff that's like 80, 85, 90% off. There's some good games in there. Go check it out for yourself. It's a fairly short list, so it's not like the 200,000 or something games on Steam, whatever massive freaking number that is. But a good friend of mine, she comes to the streams every once in a while, Pickles for Nickels, decided to do a little list, a very nice looking chart. You can go check it out on her Blue Sky. Pretty sure it's Pickles for Nickels at bluesky.link or whatever the Blue Sky URL is. And I said, hey, let me do a cheap imitation of that. So that's what I did. I slapped together a PowerPoint in about 30, 45 minutes because that's what I love doing is slapdash shit. And I wanted to share it with y'all. So here are a few, I think it's like 24. It's a good amount of games that I have played that I would genuinely recommend. Even if they weren't on sale, they're all good games. They're good games, Brent. But I did try to keep this whole list under $10 because I know a lot of you out there are cheap bastards, and there's nothing wrong with that. Fucking shit's expensive. Burgers like $6. Remember when that was a joke? Remember when Carl's Jr. had the $6 burger and they're like, hey, it tastes like a $6 burger, but it doesn't cost $6. Now it's like $6.50. We live in a hellscape. We live in hell. Anyway, video games. That's what we're talking about, video games. So, Steam sale. Here are my recommendations. Everything on this list is under $10, and there's still a tiered system to it. So, you can fit yourself to whatever your budget of $10 or less may be. Let's get started. So first, as you can probably see, this layout is horrendous. If I was being paid to do this, I'd probably be fired. Luckily, I'm not being paid. I did this shit for free. So you get to deal with it. I wanted to be a little bit more dynamic than just a list. I wanted to use some cover arts and then put the numbers on them. And for the most part, they're centered, but some of them are a little weird. I did some trickery to make sure they all show up, good enough. So anyway, here's a list of games that are under $10. This is the first of, I think I got 3 tiers on here. So I'll just go through everything. Give me a second. So first up, we got Monster Hunter Rise. It's $10 right now. It's great. It's a good Monster Hunter. There's a lot of debate between people who like Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter World more. I think they're both very good games. I think I like the end game loot grind in Rise more than World, but there are things about Rise I don't like. I'm not a big fan of the wire bug, quite honestly. I think there are places where it's too good and places where it's complete crap. But it's still a good Monster Hunter game. If you've never played a Monster Hunter game, I think Rise is a great way to jump into the series. I recently picked it up for a friend, played a little bit with someone for the first time, and they enjoyed it. So if you want to get ready for Monster Hunter Wilds coming out 2025, oh man, I really hope it's early 2025. Check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. And for $10, you're not out that much money if you are. Next up after that is Bugsnax. Bugsnax is a fantastic little game by a developer called Young Horses. It's just under $7.50 right now. That's almost that's a decent burger these days. It's a great game. It is. I don't want to call it a walking simulator, but pretty much all you do is walk. You have your little guy, a little Grumpus, and you're going around this island of Bugsnax, catching Bugsnax. And some of them are pretty easy. You just walk up to them and you hit catch and you catch them. And some of them are a bit more difficult. You got to use your brain. You got to do some puzzling. There's no real combat to speak of. It's purely non-lethal Bugsnax catching. There's an interesting story. There's a fantastic cast of characters backed by some fantastic voice actors. So if you just want to hang around a nice, pretty, food bug filled island and listen to some people yap, well, you can't go wrong with Bugsnax. Next up is one many of you may not have heard of, Super Puzzle Platformer. This is a game. So, what feels like forever ago, Adult Swim used to have a web page where you could play Flash games. I know, I'm going a million miles a minute. Just stick with me. There were many different games on that page. Some of them were turned into bigger games that were later released in full on Steam. I don't know if Super Puzzle Platformer is one of them. I don't remember seeing it on Adult Swim Games page. Another one here on this list, Super House of Dead Ninjas, was. I don't know if Super Puzzle Platformer was. Nonetheless, Super Puzzle Platformer is a standalone game. It's sort of like Tetris and what's that other game? Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, the Japanese name that they co-opted for a shitzillion things in the West. Anyway, it's sort of like that, but you play a little yellow guy, and you platform around on the Tetris zone, and you attack the Tetris blocks in order to break them and score points. It's a really interesting way to do that style of game. And the soundtrack isn't just stacked with wall-to-wall bangers. This is one of the few soundtracks that I listen to in full, and I love every single one of them. It's fantastic. If for no other reason, check out the soundtrack to Super Puzzle Platformer. We'll go back to Bug Fables since I mentioned it. Super House of Dead Ninjas, $6.99. It's $1 less than Puzzle Platformer if you're, really strapped for cash. This is a pseudo sequel, a pseudo remake. I'm not sure what to call it. From the Flash game House of Dead Ninjas, which was on Adult Swim Games, like I said earlier. It was a fantastic game. I played that a lot. I wish I knew how many hours I put into that game. It was a fair bit. So they took that game, they added a new protagonist, they added a bunch of new items, they made it look prettier and bigger and better, and they released it on Steam as Super House of Dead Ninjas. It is a sort of side-scrolling action game. You start at the top of this tower, this house of ninjas who may or may not be dead, and you work your way down. The different floors have different enemies, and every so often there's a boss who you need to kill. You get a bunch of power-ups, be they screen clears, be they increases to your attack, be they other things I don't remember because it's been so long. There's a lot of different upgrades and things you can do. There's a lot of secrets. It's very Binding of Isaac-esque in some of its secrets. There's a lot of hidden blocks. There's a lot of not exactly secret passages, but stuff that's not immediately obvious unless you understand some of the nuanced mechanics of the game. But in more of a side-scrolling action platformer than a sort of twin-stick shootery top-down look. It's a lot of fun. I wish I could say go to Adult Swim Games and just play House of Dead Ninjas and see if you like it, and if you do, buy Super House of Dead Ninjas, but I don't know if that website exists or is accessible anymore. But it's $7. Go check it out. Play it for 2 hours. If you don't like it, refund it. Or don't. You're out $7. Who cares? Moving back up to Bug Fables. So, we are going to be playing some Paper Mario Thousand Year Door later. This is, and I mean this sincerely and wholeheartedly, Bug Fables: The Everlasting Sapling is the second best Paper Mario game ever made. It is. It is a fantastic JRPG, very, very much inspired by Paper Mario, particularly Thousand Year Door, I feel, but both of them, all of them. And the story is honestly better than any of the Paper Marios, even Super, which has the best story of them all. The mechanics seem incredibly well thought out and like a genuine evolution of the mechanics that you're using in Paper Mario Thousand Year Door. This game was crafted with so much love and reverence for Thousand Year Door. It is damn near immaculate. It is fantastic. If you like Paper Mario, if you wish there were more Paper Marios, and if you are not happy with some of the later Paper Marios, please check out Bug Fables. It is great. And it's only $8. It if you want to play Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and you don't have $60 or a Switch, go play Bug Fables. It's practically the same thing, and in some places it's better. Moving on down to the bottom, we've got Mega Man X Legacy Collection. Y'all hopefully know me. I love me some Mega Man X. This is the good one. There are two Legacy Collections. Do not get Legacy Collection 2. Legacy Collection 2 is the bad one. Now, in truth, are all of the games in that collection bad? No. They range from bad to all right. If you like Legacy Collection and you really want to check out the rest of the series, go ahead and get Legacy Collection 2. But it is by no means a must-buy. Legacy Collection 1, however, absolutely. If you enjoy side-scrolling platformers and a little bit of shooting, a little bit of Mega Manning, you can't do better than $2 a pop for some of the best Mega Man games ever made. Moving over to more Super Nintendo stuff. Chrono Trigger. It's $7.50. It's Chrono Trigger. I think I'm confident in saying, and I don't care if you have a different opinion, this is my damn stream, Chrono Trigger is the best Super Nintendo game ever made. It's fantastic. It looks good. It plays good. The story is incredibly engaging, incredibly unique, even by today's standards. And trust me, this utilized and established a lot of tropes that are still used today. It's great. One of my favorite things about it is that the game does not really want you or expect you to grind. It had something that never bothered me, but bothered a lot of people back in the day, of JRPGs having random battles where you'd walk around on a screen and then, battle time, just because, you stepped on a tile. Chrono Trigger doesn't have that. Every single enemy that you run into, they show up in packs, appears on the map. You see them. You run into them to attack them, or you avoid them to not fight them. And the game is balanced in such a way that if you just fight everything that you see, you're going to be fine. You're not going to need to grind to beat some bosses. There's not going to be a wall. If you want to do optional stuff, maybe you should do a bit of grinding. But if you just want to play through the main story, just play it like a regular freaking video game. You'll be fine. And again, best Super Nintendo game ever made. And that almost hurts to say when I think about Mega Man X and Donkey Kong Country 2. But I think Chrono Trigger is the best. Next up, Blasphemous. Blasphemous 2 is also on sale. Blasphemous 2 is fantastic. I think it's better than Blasphemous 1 in damn near every way. But it also costs like $13, and I wanted to keep this list under 10. So if you have a bit bigger budget, go play Blasphemous 2. It's better. But if you don't, and you still want to play a really, really good Metroidvania, a side-scrolling action Metroidvania game, a search action game, as some people call it, you cannot do much better than Blasphemous. There's a few things that are better, but it is a short-ass list. Go play it. Unless you're, really turned off by Catholic guilt, because holy shit, is this game Catholic as fuck. And then the final game on our list, a lot of Capcom here, I'm noticing. Good Capcom games for under $10 this stream. Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2, I never played the original Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 4 was my first Resident Evil, and I didn't really go back to Resident Evil for a long time. But I know a lot of people love Resident Evil 2, and when they were announcing the remake, I was like, all right, I'll give this old style Resident Evil a shot. And it's fantastic. I have heard from people that played the original that it is a fantastic and very faithful remake. There are very few things that it cuts out of the original, and it sounds like for the most part they were right to do so. And the things that it adds are all great. It modernizes not only the controls, but the game design. The Mr. X and how he functions is much better, from what I understand. and it's a fantastic survival horror game. If you haven't played any Resident Evil, I think it's a great place to start. You could start with Resident Evil Remake. That game's probably like 20 years old now. Holy shit, I don't want to think about that. But if you want something a little more modern, go with Resident Evil 2. It's under $10, legally speaking. So that's it for the $10 games. Now we move on to the next tier. Let's say you're a little bit cheaper, but you still want to play some video games. Well, Papa's here for you with our games under $6 section. So I had to fiddle with the numbers a bit. They're a bit irregular so that I could fit a decent number of things on these slides and not have them be particularly one-sided. That last slide would have been a lot bigger if I had kept this at $5. I ended up cutting some things, but there was more than one $5.99, let me tell you that. But really, the whole reason it's $6 is because I really wanted to fit Flint Hook on here. So we'll start with that. Flint Hook is a fantastic little action side scroll. It's not really... It's much more like a side-scrolling Binding of Isaac than Super House of Dead Ninjas that I mentioned just minutes ago. The main mechanic, the crux of the game, is the hook. Why did I say it like that? The hook of the Flint Hook. He has a grapple hook. He is the Grapple Jack. He kind of looks like Candle Jack from that old cartoon with Freakazoid. So a friend of mine only refers to this game as Grapple Jack. I constantly have to remind him that the game is called Flint Hook because he calls it Grapple Jack. And I don't know, Grapple Jack's kind of a better name, but we're not going to have that debate here. Regardless, Flint Hook is a fantastic game. If you like sort of roguelike Isaac style, you're locked in a room, you have to fight some enemies, but it's also a side-scrolling platformer, and you've got a really cool, really well-designed, really good-feeling grapple hook. Check out Flint Hook. Now we can go to the under $5 games, which is the rest of this page. Sonic Mania. It's no secret that I am no longer the biggest fan of Sonic. I grew up with Sonic the Hedgehog. He was one of my first video game characters. It was one of my first franchises I ever engaged with. Sega Genesis was my first console. It was Mickey Mouse and Sonic for a while. And I love 2D side-scrolling Sonic. I did not play 3D Sonic until Heroes came out. I didn't play Adventure. I didn't play Adventure 2. I played a little bit of the multiplayer of Adventure 2 at a friend's house. He really wanted to play the multiplayer. He didn't want to play the single player. So Sonic Heroes is bad. Sonic Heroes is the reason that I can no longer say I love Sonic. I hate that game. I hate that game so much. And ever since then, I have been begging, pleading, crying to the heavens, please God, make another 2D Sonic game. And they did, and they were bad. But then, Christian Whitehead and his team made Sonic Mania, and it's the best Sonic. It's one of the best Sonic games ever made. It absolutely deserves to be held in as high regard as Sonic 1, 2, 3, and or Knuckles. It's fantastic. If you like 2D Sonic, if you like 2D platforming, play Sonic Mania, for the love of God. It's $5. That's less than a hamburger. That's less than most hamburgers here in the United States of hamburgers. Moving on to something else that's also probably 20 years old. I don't like this game anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. Anyway, it's Darksiders, War Mastered Edition. Darksiders was a fun little game that I did not appreciate when it first came out. I saw it and I thought it was some edgy garbage. And then I played it years and years later. It had not been... I don't think it had been War Mastered yet. I think I just picked up a cheap copy for like my Xbox 360. And it turns out it's a Zelda. It turns out they just made a super edgy Zelda for the Xbox. And it's actually really great. It handles good. The combat is much better than an Ocarina of Time, which isn't saying much. You block and you hit a sword. It's it's more nuanced than that. It ain't quite Devil May Cry, but it's getting there. And it's a lot of fun. It's got a really interesting story. It's got a fantastic voice cast. It's got Phil Lamar. It's got Mark frickin' Hamill. It's a fun little game. And it has multiple sequels, which decrease in quality as you progress in time through those sequels. But they're not the worst games. Darksiders is the best of them, by and large. So if you like Zelda, if you like Edge, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It's less than $5. The numbers get a bit more obscure. I'm just going around in a little horseshoe shape. Vampire Survivors. Hopefully I don't have to tell you about Vampire Survivors, right? It created a fucking genre. We have vampire likes now. Wonder if you guys can hear that. That was my ringtone. Buddy's texting me. Anyway, it's somewhere between a twin stick shooter and an idle game. You can't quite idle, you can't quite twin stick shoot because you can't shoot. It's a lot of fun. It's addicting, and it's not the cheapest it's ever been, but for the amount of content that is in that game, it's insane that they are putting it on sale at all. So check out Vampire Survivors if for some reason you haven't. Next up, a game you also hopefully have heard of, Hypnospace Outlaw. It is a very, like, I'll be straight with you. It's a detective game. It is a game with a mystery narrative, and you are trying to solve a mystery. There is straight up detective work in the form of internet security, 90s internet security. It is very much its own little microcosm of what people remember 90s and very early 2000s internet to be. And it's right in a lot of ways. It's very much like a little time capsule. But it's also a video game, and it's a good one at that. So if you want a cool mystery narrative, if you want to solve some puzzles, if you want to see what the internet was like when I was a young lad, check it out. It's a lot of fun. Moving right along in the why should I have to tell you about this, go play it list is Disco Elysium. It's fantastic. It's one of maybe even the best stories in video games. It's there's no combat. There's no fighting, there's no combat. Imagine if you could not fight in Baldur's Gate and it took place in Eastern Europe. And you're getting pretty close to what Disco Elysium is. It's still very much a video game. There are still myriad choices that you have to make. There are situations, both physical and non-physical, that you have to navigate. And I would die for Kim Kitsuragi. So that should be all you need to know. Go play Disco Elysium. It's $4 fucking. This game is fantastic, and it's $4. Another one that I shouldn't keep saying it, but I'm gonna keep saying it. I probably don't have to tell you to go play Doom, specifically 2016 Doom. If you've been watching my channel, you know that I don't do a lot of first-person shooting. It's never really been my thing. I had certainly played first-person shooters before Metroid Prime, but Metroid Prime was the first time I really enjoyed first-person shooting. And I know this is a weird thing to say, and people might get angry if they hear me say it. I'm not saying that this is correct, but it's how I felt based on my video gaming journey. Playing Doom 2016 made me feel like I was playing Metroid Prime for the first time again. And that was a feeling Metroid Prime 2 or 3 couldn't even recapture. So I was very surprised. If I hadn't made this clear, I'd never played Doom before. Yeah, I've never played any Doom. We did not get a computer until 99, 2000. And one of the first games I got on that was Warcraft 3. I played Half-Life before I played Doom. Love me some Half-Life, by the way. So this was the first Doom I ever played. And maybe that feeling is something that a lot of people already had, but I didn't. And it was something special. And it was really cool. And it's a really good-ass video game. If you if you like me and you don't really like first-person shooter, but you like a good video game with maybe a little bit of platforming and a good-ass soundtrack, fantastic soundtrack, check out Doom. It's $4. Axiom Verge. Great game. This is very much what happens when Nintendo takes 15 years to make a good Metroid and somebody else says, fuck it, I'll do it my damn self and I'll do it better than you. And up until Dread, that was the case. Axiom Verge is... I don't want to call it a Metroidvania, not only because I don't like the name of that genre, but also because there's no Vania. This is Metroid. This game is Metroid with the serial numbers filed off. And that's not a bad thing. It is by no means a cheap imitation. It is fantastic. Story's a little weird. There are some points where you may get stuck and have to look up what to do because the map layout is a tad weird. Again, very reminiscent of Metroid. But it's a fantastic game. And if you like Metroid, and maybe if you like Castlevania, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Axiom Verge. Axiom Verge 2, the sequel, is also on sale. I want to say it's like $6. I did not personally like Axiom Verge 2 nearly as much as I liked Axiom Verge. You can check it out for yourself. I do not personally recommend it. It's not to say it's a bad game. I just didn't like it. And then finally, because I couldn't just put Mega Man on here once, 20XX. This is a really, really good Mega Man X game if Mega Man X was procedurally generated. If it was roguelike, if you will. There's... I don't want to call it jank. There's some things about the way the levels are procedurally generated that makes me wish the game was more handcrafted, that it was just a Mega Man X. Things feel repetitive very quickly. But it's still a lot of fun. It's... I hate constantly comparing roguelikes to Isaac, but, you know, it's a gold standard for a fucking reason, I guess. It very much feels like 2D side-scrolling Isaac in that sometimes you're going to get items that suck, and your build is going to suck and you're going to die. And sometimes you're going to get a couple of items that synergize maybe a little too well, and you're going to absolutely annihilate the game. And that feels awesome to do. So, again, I hate saying this, but it's just the way it is. If you like Isaac, and if you like 2D side-scrolling action platformers, and especially if you like Mega Man X, check out 20XX. The sequel 30XX is also on sale. It's both not under $10. I want to say it's like $12, $13 right now. I also feel it's not as good of a game as 20XX. I feel 30XX did a little bit too much to balance the game. I know it's a weird thing to say. The game is too balanced, but I feel like they filed off a few too many edges. It doesn't... Something about it just doesn't feel right. I don't like it. And I'm sorry I'm not better at articulating what it is about that game that rubs me the wrong way, but it just does. And I do not recommend it, personally. If you really like 20XX, check it out, but I'd say just play 20XX. And now I think this is the second to last section. I think I managed to split these into two sections. I did. Okay, so you're really, really painfully broke. You're so goddamn broke. You're hanging by a razor's edge. But you still want to play some video games. Well, I can't say I blame you. Maybe try and... Hopefully things improve for you soon. Jesus Christ. But if you're in such a situation and you've got nay but $3 to spend on a video game, I have still got you covered. Some of these games you've likely heard of. There's mostly indie darlings on this list, but hey, it's games that I can personally recommend, and they're $3. Guess what? The list ain't that long. So the first up is XCOM 2. And XCOM 1, I haven't played XCOM Chimera Squad. I hear it's good. I'd like to. I think there's a snake lady. You know I like my snake ladies. But I just grabbed the cover art for XCOM 2. It's it's a tactics game. It's Final Fantasy Tactics. It's a tactical. I don't want to call it a military shooter, but you are, for all intents and purposes, a military unit. You've got shotguns that you eventually upgrade into laser shotguns because you co-opt alien tech. But it's a tactics game where you kill aliens, and there's a little bit of base building. There's a shitload of management. It's it's a difficult game. It is not. You're gonna fail a lot at the beginning, and it's gonna feel bad, and you're not gonna like it. And I don't blame you, but it is a really rewarding game that makes you feel incredibly good and cool and smart and strong when things go right, and makes you feel like you are the dumbest motherfucker alive when things go wrong. Unfortunately, it has a rather deserved reputation for just straight up lying to you when it comes to shot accuracy. That part's annoying. Which game didn't lie? Don't lie. Please don't lie. But it's still a lot of fun. Love shooting aliens. Can't get enough alien shooting. Uh, I give you two guesses what kind of game Rogue Legacy is. Did you guess a roguelike? Guess what? You're right. Did you also guess from everything else on this list that it's a 2D action platformer? Oh man, I have a fucking type, don't I? Yeah, it's a roguelike 2D action platformer. It's from the makers of Cultural Touchstone Don't Shit Your Pants and other cool video games. But it is actually a really cool, really competent, really fun side-scrolling action game that is roguelike. And it feels incredibly good to play. The everything about the movement, the attacking, there's a bunch of different classes that you can pick that are all very unique. Some are better than others, but it's just the nature of it. But they're all very different and fun to play. And if you want a side scrolling action game, if you want something roguelike that you can replay over and over and over, and you only got $3 to spend, Rogue Legacy is probably the best you can possibly do. And then we've got Dicey Dungeons. This game is a ton of fun. If you know me, you know that I love my card games and my dice games. And Dicey Dungeons, guess what? It's a dice game. But there's a bit of card to it as well. It is basically a turn-based dungeon crawler where you're going through a dungeon and you are various little dice people. And you do various dice attacks. And they all have different, interesting, unique mechanics for how they attack. The blue guy, the warrior, for the most part, you roll dice and you do that much damage. But you can get other equipment like a shield where you can use your dice to block, or a like fire sword that will burn the enemy if you roll a 6, stuff like that. Then you've got the thief, the rogue character, the green one. He specializes in lower numbers. He has a lot of things that will, hey, if you can take this dice and split it into 2 dice. So you can take this 6 and split it into 2 3s. And then, hey, I've got this attack that can hit multiple times with multiple dice, but you can only put a 3 or lower in there. Stuff like that. And I think there's like 6 or 7 characters. It's a good number of characters and a whole lot of levels to play. And it's a lot of fun if you enjoy stuff like Slay the Spire, if you enjoy dice rolling combat. I've certainly played multiple games like it. And what's really cool, I doubt it's on sale, but this game is on phones. I recently purchased it for phones because it plays really well on a phone. And something really cool that they did is, hey, we can't implement save transferring between PC and maybe Switch and phone. It's just not feasible. So here's a little debug option that you can set, and you can just set the game progress to whatever the hell you were. We don't care. Say you beat the game. We don't care. You already gave us the money. What the hell do we care? So I really, really liked and appreciated that, because as much as I like the game, there are some levels that are complete bullshit that I did not want to do again, and thankfully I didn't have to. So if you want to play it on a phone, you can get it on there for some amount of money, but if you want to play it on Steam, It's $2.99. Next up, FTL. Tell me if you've heard this one before. Roguelike is roguelike. Tell me if you've heard this one before. It's got a fantastic soundtrack. Absolute wall-to-wall banger. Some of the best, just ambient, cozy. If you're someone who's afraid of space, if you have a fear of being in space, I think the soundtrack might help with that. I'm not a doctor, don't quote me on that, but it's a very calming, very melodic, very fitting soundtrack, I guess is the best way to put it. So short version of the gameplay, you are these little guys who are controlling a spaceship. There are a ton of different spaceships, a ton of different space races. All those races have different different things they can do, different pluses and minuses, skills, things they're good at, things they're bad at. For example, you have regular humans. They're pretty they're pretty average at everything. That's kind of what humans do. And then you've got rock people. They're much slower than humans, but they have more health. And they do care about air, but they can't burn because they're made of rocks. Or you've got this sort of like alien engineer race called the Engi, and they're extra good at manning systems and fixing stuff, but they don't fight so good. So you've got a bunch of different characters manning your ship, and you're flying around this galaxy trying to avoid this Imperial, not exactly a blockade because it's advancing on you, but you're trying to avoid getting killed by the bad guys. So you're jumping from star system to star system, planet to planet, and there's a bunch of roguelike things that happen. Hey, there's a distress beacon. Oh, you helped the person. Nice. Uh-oh, turns out it's a space pirate. Go to this planet. Here's a weird shapeshifter. Do you help it? Do you kill it? Stuff like that. And then there's combat. And the combat's a really cool combination of turn-based and real-time. You can pause the combat at any time and survey everything. You have, for the most part, complete information about what your opponent's ship is doing. You don't quite know everything, but you can see who's in it for the most part and where they are and what kind of weaponry they have. And then you can take your ship and you can aim your weapons and set your shields and put all of your power into thrusters so you can dodge stuff. You have options. But then to actually do those things, to execute those actions, you have to unpause and let the game play out in real time. But at any time, you can pause the game and change your orders, your options, the things that you're doing. So it's a very cool, it's a very unique combat system that is real time, but allows for you to pause the game as much as you need. So it's very difficult to feel pressured for time because you can pause whenever you need and take as much time as you need to assess the situation. I think that's a really cool thing. If that game did not have a pause button, it would be a very different, much more stressful game. But as is, it's a very chill, fun, cool space exploration and turn-based combat game. Check it out. It's $2.50. And then another indie darling on the list, Celeste. Side-scrolling platformer. Yeah, never heard that one before. It's a fantastic one of those. Celeste is great. It's got a very interesting, well-written story. It may be an allegory for some stuff. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to just say that without being 100% sure. But I do believe there is some allegoricalness to the story. Even if there's not, still a great story. Still a great game. Fantastic platforming. Some of the best platforming in the business. And one of the, I don't want to say pioneers, but it might actually be the case. One of the first modern games that I can think of that had an accessibility menu that was like, hey, here's a bunch of, you can turn down the game speed. You can make yourself invincible. You can give yourself extra help. You can turn on extra checkpoints. There's a ton of options to make the game easier or harder if you are insane. Game's already pretty hard, let me tell you. But it is very much a game that is cool with making itself easier so you can get through it. And I wish more games did that. I think those are some really cool options. Maybe not every game needs it, but I certainly wish more had it. So it's very accommodating. It it is here. It wants you to play the game, and it's here to help you do that if you're having trouble with it. I think that's pretty cool. Also, it's $2. It's I'm struggling to think of other things that I can buy with money that are $2 in this day and age. Maybe a McDonald's soda if they're doing the 99-cent any size soda. They usually do that during the summer. You sure as hell ain't getting any food for $2, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, it's a great platformer. Go play it. And then we come to the final list. If you are destitute, damn near penniless, you have but $1 and some change in your pocket, and a computer, and electricity, well, hey, you can check out some of these games. So here's my under $1.50 list. I had to rate it to $1.50 because otherwise there'd be like 3 games on it. There's still a ton of good games on Steam for $1 or less. I haven't played them all. I can't vouch for them. Everything here I can vouch for personally. So we're doing under $1.50. Inflation's tough. I'm trying, guys. I'm really, really trying. First up is Castle Crashers. They did a remaster recently, which is on consoles, but I don't think it's on PC because they never needed to. Everything that's in the remaster, I believe, has just always been on the PC version. So really, the Castle Crashers remaster was just bringing all the consoles up to parity with PC. It's a side-scrolling beat-em-up. If you've ever played... Oh, I know, compare it to older games. The kids will get that. If you've ever played Golden Axe, if you've ever played Final Fight, if you've ever played Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, it's one of those. It's from the founders of Newgrounds. It's a lot of fun. There's a shit zillion characters. There's a ton of levels. There's some dated-ass humor. But it's a really, really good game, and for $1.50, you can't do much better than that. Next up is something a bit... I don't actually know. I know this is newer than Castle Crashers. It's Bloons. This is another game that I played not quite as a lad, probably in middle school, maybe even high school, on the computer as a flash game. It's a tower defense. That's what the TD in Bloons TD stands for, believe it or not. And you little monkeys, and you shoot balloons. And sometimes the balloons are balloons, and sometimes the balloons are like an ICBM that's invisible and shoots lasers and other bullshit. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of whimsy in this game about monkeys destroying balloons. But like I said, at its core, it's a tower defense. The monkeys are towers. You place them along a track. They kill balloons. There are so many different monkeys. There's hero monkeys. There's regular monkeys. There's monkeys that ain't monkeys. And it's a lot of fun. I believe this is a mobile game. I believe it's available on phones. I don't know if it's free or if it costs money on phones. There's a bit of mobile gotchaness to it, but you can play this game for literally hundreds of hours and have a ton of fun with a bunch of characters and never spend a dime. There's a bunch of cool cosmetic and other stuff that you can purchase if you so choose, but you can get a lot out of this game for the $1.39 it's asking for up front. So if you like a tower defense and you're sick of playing Warcraft 3 or StarCraft, check out Bloons. It's really good. It's less than $1.50. It's less than Castle Crashers. Continuing, we're gonna loop around a little bit, go back to the left side. VVVVVVV. Side-scrolling platformer. Okay. Hear me out. Also got a banger soundtrack. I wonder how many times I've said that. Anyway, it's great. It's a great little side-scrolling platforming indie game. I don't remember when it came out, but it's quite old by now. And you're a little guy. I think his name is Viridian. Starts with a V, I'll tell you that. And you go left, you go right. You don't jump. The big thing in this game is that you hit what you would think would be the jump button, and you flip gravity up and down. That's the main mechanic of the game. You go left, you go right, you flip gravity. And you'd be surprised how many different puzzles and cool, unique mechanics they can do with what is essentially 3 buttons. So, yeah, if you like side-scrolling platformers, check out VVVVVV. It kind of I would think a very well-known indie game. But hey, if you haven't played it for some reason, it's $1.24. It's not even $1.25. And then we go to the sub ones. SteamWorld Dig. Let me take you back to a time. Let me take you back to the year. Let's call it 2003. Probably 2003. The exact year isn't important. I was a young lad, a mere 13 years old. I was in middle school. I was in the computer lab of my middle school. And I was checking out video games on the internet. Flash games. And there was one in particular that really struck a chord with me called Motherlode. I believe it's Motherlode. It takes place on Mars. You are a little drill machine, and you drill into the crust of Mars, and you collect various gems and metals and stones. And then you go back up to the surface, and you sell those for money, and you upgrade your driller. And then you just do that again and again and again for a couple of hours. Very simple, very flash. And it was a ton of fun, and I loved it. And years and years later, someone, I assume, played that game and said, hey, I could do that. And they made SteamWorld Dig. Nowadays, there's a shitload of SteamWorld games. I believe this was the first one. Now it's a whole damn franchise. They got side-scrolling action games. They got turn-based shooting games. They got city-building games. They got card-battling games. But at the very start, SteamWorld Dig was just a robot with a pickaxe digging down. Oh my god, I'm going to sound like such a fucking boomer. This was my Minecraft. And it's not like Minecraft because there wasn't a whole lot of crafting, but when I think of a mining game, a game that made me yearn for the mines, SteamWorld Dig is it. It's a lot of fun. It's 99 frickin' cents. You DM me on Discord, I'll buy it for you. How about that? It does have a sequel. I think the sequel's not quite as good as the first one, and it's also more expensive because it's newer. I don't think it's under... I don't think it's over $7. Maybe it's like $7.50 at most. But if you want to dig, if you want a actually interesting story, and you want to be a robot, check out SteamWorld Dig. It's a friggin' $1. And then last on the list for a couple of reasons. Number one, I doubt very many people watching this video or on this planet don't have these games. But hey, for some reason you don't have pretty much any game Valve has ever put out. They come in 2 flavors, 99 cents and free. So if you've never played Half-Life, Half-Life 2, Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2, Portal, Portal 2, and that's all the numbers, check them out. They're 99 cents. There are times where they were free, so if you're one of those weirdos that min-maxes spending money on video games, and you're like, oh, I can't spend 99 cents. It's free. It's worthless. Well, then don't. If you want a cool, fun video game, give Valve $1 and they'll give you a cool, fun video game. What do you want? And yeah, I think that's the end of the presentation. So let me just mute that so I don't dox myself too hard. So yeah. I'm sure there are plenty of games in there that a lot of people have heard of. I tried. This list was longer and had even less obscure games, I promise. I really tried to stick within the $10 budget and also present some good, interesting, unique games that I have not talked about too much before in the past. And yeah, that's what I came up with. I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope it helped some of you. And, if not, well, I hope you find something that did, and I hope you find some cool video games and play them. Because that's what it's all about, baby. Finding cool video games and playing them. Ah, Lord, that was almost an hour. Jesus. Um, I might turn into a big fat liar, but who's here to tell me otherwise? We'll do some Paper Mario. Let me get set up a little bit, and then we'll do a little bit of Paper Mario. It's going to be not a whole lot. We're not finishing the chapter, I'll tell you that right now. But I'll be back in a few. BRB.